website and brand and all that stuff. So
And then my daughter is a junior, and she, at the beginning of this, I think they're both.
So I ran all the way back to the house to get my charger for nothing. Because I thought I was gonna have to record this. I was like, crap.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't know if you were sticking around or if you had plans.
So you want to. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I think we're all here, right?
The baby on. Are you?
Well, I have to, wait, I have to.
Yeah, it's, our need, it's a good friend.
Okay.
I'm not too that. She's not hungry, she's wrong. Oh, yeah. Right. So if I talk to somebody outside, talk to them, teach them, I want to hear them, maybe they're like, when, what happened?
They threw it in sixth grade, but they came through in sixth grade. Samantha Paul.
Okay, I think we'll get started. I'm just looking at Diana's things she passed out. I didn't hear what they were. Okay, so Diana's got some information about a great photographer here.
And something about it being,
Oh, and she needs our support for Union County Schools. So if you're interested in helping Diana with some of her efforts with our Union County Schools, please reach out to her. You're doing what, Diana? Be a principal for the day?
Yeah, our next thing's principal for a day. So it's
Okay.
Union County Education Foundation, they do grants for teachers
Mm-hmm.
in our schools to do things in their classrooms that they want to do. So like one of the big things we did is one of the EC classrooms, we bought them a popcorn machine. And so every Wednesday they sell popcorn. So they have coffee to see kids how to run a business essentially, which is kind of cool. And so they get to interact with people, they get to count money, they get to do things that they wouldn't normally get to do, and it gets them out there and builds their confidence and stuff. And like we're building outdoor classrooms, we're doing a lot of agricultural stuff. And so I mean, it's kind of cool. And then we also, of course, do scholarships and stuff. So if you know a senior or a rising senior that wants to go into education, there's some really good grants and scholarship programs and stuff like that that we support as well. So
Cool.
and then this just gives you an opportunity. If you do principal per day, I got involved with the foundation doing it because I was like, yay, what a great way to make business, right? Like, let's go meet some people. And you go and you spend the day, the morning at a school. You can try to pick your school if they have availability there, or at least your grade level kind of thing. And then you get to go and hang out with them. It's everything from the bus lines to talking to the coaches about the game that happened on Friday that had some really crazy stuff happen, to getting to be on the walkie-talkies and some photo walks, and then walking through the classroom, seeing what it is that we've done in those schools if they've done something in the school. And then figuring out how it is that we can partner with our local schools to help them. So it gives you business contacts. It gives the principal a support system so where they can say, hey, we need volunteers for X, Y, and Z. And it's a really great way to do it. So Union County does it, which is the board I'm on. Mecklenburg County also has one. So if you guys have not reached out to any programs like this, it's a really great way to give back and to hopefully get your name out there a little bit. It's a win-win for everyone involved. So that's one of the things that we preach is community involvement. You build your sphere naturally and organically, then you are more likely to continue to let it grow.
Yeah, getting involved in things like this is a great way to expand your reach, meet more people, include them in your sphere. So thanks for bringing that to our attention, Diana. And when I shared with Diana that Andrea and I had come up with this idea for a training, she was like, well, I really like talking to people that are difficult. So she wanted to be included. So we're just going to kind of have like an open discussion about how to deal with people in our business that can be, difficult at times, and how to work through that, and really how to talk to all of our clients. I know most of us in real estate did not go to, school intending to be a realtor, but my background and my major in college was communication. So I've been learning about communication for years now, and I obviously use it a lot in my daily life as a realtor. So today we're not really talking about assholes. We're talking about we're talking about people that bring forth objections to what we're trying to help them move through, okay? So we're trying as realtors to help people move through the process of buying or selling. And what I actually wanted to point out is that we're not really salespeople. I mean, at the core of it, we are real estate consultants. You know, we consult with people through this process and guide them through it. I don't really ever feel like a salesperson when I'm working with my clients. I don't know how you guys feel, but I certainly don't, feel like, oh, I'm at the car dealership and I got to sell you on this one home. Like, we don't sell homes. We help people through the process, and we help them understand if this is the right home for them or how to market their home for the market. So they don't come to us to be salespeople. They come to us to be a consultant. And I think when you're meeting your clients, you have to think about that first and foremost. The reason they're talking to you is because they value your information that you're going to be sharing with them. You have some value to them. Otherwise, people wouldn't need us at all, and everything would be FISBO. So, and that's not the world we want to live in, because we are educated and have something to give them. So I just want us to remember when we're meeting with our clients that we're not selling anything. We're teaching them that there is value in our consulting services. And the way to be a good consultant is to be, first and foremost, an excellent listener. And one of the ways of being a good listener is to ask a lot of questions. Don't, let them lead the conversation and you listen. And after you've listened, then you ask them questions to dig a little bit deeper, because sometimes they're not going to know what they need to tell you in order for you to help them. And we build rapport with people when we make them feel comfortable, and then we can help them make decisions because we built rapport. So rapport is the number one thing in getting people to do what you want them to do. If you have a good relationship with somebody and they feel comfortable with you, then they're highly likely to do what you ask them to do.
You guys, this means answering your phone. This means answering your phone. This means making
Yes.
people know that they are special, that they are number one in their lives. This means reiterating to people that you are here for them. I get asked all the time, how many clients do you take on at a time? It doesn't matter how many clients I have in that moment. My answer is always no more than 5.
Mhm.
Okay, whatever it is. I might just have one client at a time. They might think I'm busy as hell.
Mhm.
But my answer is always no more than 5, because I know what my limit is. And I want to make sure that I'm giving that service to people. You need to have an answer to questions like that, because people need to feel like they're important. They need to know that they're being heard. They trust you, because when it comes to negotiating, you can't give them advice if they don't trust you.
Right.
But answer your phones.
Answer your texts,
Yes.
answer your phones, return your voicemails, answer your emails. Yes. This is a challenge for all of us these days with things coming at us in so many ways, but that's a good point. I mean, a lot of these objections, you want to be honest with people, but we are making people feel important. And if you tell them that you do limit your number of clients to a certain amount, then they're going to feel more important. And that's okay to fudge that a little bit sometimes.
It's okay for them to think you're a little busier than you.
Yes,
They want you to-
exactly.
You need to be important. So build your value both ways, but make sure they know this, so they know that you're sticking up for them and they're gonna move.
Exactly. And where the whole a-holes of this whole thing comes in is where people start presenting you with objections. So these are, barriers to you getting where you want with your client. And, I want to talk about a little bit about what is an objection. And, not everything that you feel may be an objection really is one. Sometimes it's just our clients need to say a lot of things out loud. They need to speak it out into existence for their brain to work through that issue. It might be, you're touring a home and all the bedrooms are small, and they're like, these bedrooms are all so small. You don't really need to convince them otherwise of that. They just need to talk that through out in the open. And so you don't really need to add to the conversation about how small the bedrooms are. You just need to let them tell you that's how they feel about the bedrooms. And then, we move on, or we change the topic to, well, but this part of the house is really, checking a lot of the boxes that you discussed with me that you need in the home. So, not everything that people say that's negative is technically an objection to what you're trying to do. And sometimes people say things to you just to see if they can get under your skin. I mean, a lot of the objections that we hear during a listing appointment is just to see how can you handle somebody saying something, not positive or negative to you. How can you handle it? And the number one thing is just to always remain cool, calm, and collected. And that will help them feel calm and collected, and just don't, flinch when people throw these kinds of questions at you. And the whole point of this, I wanted to do was just for us to get comfortable with what the objections are and basically rehearse what our answers are going to be. Because if you've already heard all of the objections and you've already thought about all the answers, then you're going to be comfortable giving those answers during a listing presentation or a buyer consultation. So the next thing I wanted to discuss was a little bit about going back to studying. And, we always talk to our kids about studying for tests and things like that and reading the book and when I was in college, my study hack was like, I would just rewrite all of my notes that I took in class, because that's how my brain remembered it. I would just rewrite it like 3 times because I knew I was going to have to write it down on the test. If that's the way your brain remembers how to answer these questions, then do that. If your brain remembers by listening to it over and over, I'm going to tell you guys right now, in 1U, there is a whole section on scripts for sellers, for buyers, for FSBOs, for prospecting. You can listen to them. You can just add them to your Apple library and listen to them in the car. That's pretty cool, I thought. You can listen. A binder, yeah, we have them printed out in a binder too. So if you want to copy it or read through it or highlight it. But yeah, there's really only the same 20 to 30 objections that we hear as real estate agents. They're the same, they've been the same since the dawn of real estate. So if you can master the answers to these 20 to 30 objections you're going to get during the listing or buying process, then people are always going to look at you as an expert in your field. And it's really just researching the scripts for the best answers and presenting them to them in not a aggressive way. We were talking earlier about being more assertive and aggressive. It's really just making the person understand that you know why they have that objection, and let me explain how we're going to work through that question that you have about my process.
Because keep in mind, more than anything else, you are the professional in this. Even if you just got out of real estate school, if you've never closed a deal, if you've never done anything, you know more than the guy next to you at the grocery store about selling your home. It's one of the big stories I always like to bring up to people is, what do you call someone who graduated last in their class for their MD? You still call them doctor, because they still know a whole heck of a lot more than you are. So keep in mind that you are the doctor in this situation. As much as you might lack your confidence and stuff like that, you have so much knowledge. So rely on your knowledge. So we're going to give you more of that so that you can be more confident in your knowledge. But always remember, they're coming at you with stuff because they have no clue. You either have a clue, you either have complete knowledge, or you have somebody you can reach out to, i.e. your colleagues and everything else. Right?
Yeah. Always know that you, no matter how combative the person is, you know more than they do about this process. And that's why they called you. There we go. Okay. So when people are throwing these objections at you, always acknowledge that that is a good question that they're asking you. I'm so glad that you asked that question. And then kind of reform the question and ask them a question. May I ask, or I was wondering why, or I have a question for you, just always kind of come back at them with not just like, well, why do you feel that way? Or why do you think that? Or, it's really more of a conversational way of getting more information out of them. Come from a place of curiosity. Don't judge what they're saying to you. Just genuinely be curious about what has happened in the past to make them ask this question? What have they heard? What did another agent tell them? Why are they asking you this question? Clicker's not working today. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some the top, objections that we do tend to get. First, I'm going to start with some seller objections. So these are the kind of things that you would hear when you're on a listing appointment. So number one, will you lower your commission? Diana, do you hear this one?
Not as often as you think.
Really?
Mm.
Yeah. I would say maybe 25% of the time somebody brings this up during a listing presentation. And, the way that you can kind of come back to them and say, well, I'm really glad that you brought that up. I can appreciate that question. I would probably have the same question as you. Could you explain a little bit more about what you had in mind as far as lowering the commission? And that puts it back on them to have to explain to you what exactly it is they think you're going to do or want you to do. And then a lot of the times they ask this question because they've been interviewing different agents, and another agent said they would do it for less. Okay, so they're kind of pitting you against each other, right? And you come back to that with, well, I can appreciate that you want to save money. Well, let me ask you this. When the other agent offered you a reduced price for their services, did they also share the things that they would not be doing to market your property? Because in fact, if they are going to work for less income, then they aren't going to be able to market your property as efficiently as well as I'm going to be able to for a higher commission rate. So that's one way of answering that question. Have you ever had another agent like the same kind of scenario, Diana?
I feel like a lot of what we're seeing in these limited listing services that are promoting their businesses, they were going to list your property for 1%.
Mhm.
That's the big, I think I see that objection more than I do, oh, I'm pitting you against another.
Mhm.
Because I do feel like most of the good agents that are worth their quality in this industry, when you compare each other, nobody's coming down on their commission because they know they're valuable. So I don't see it being a personal thing. I do see a lot of the limited listing services
Mhm.
and a lot of the iBuyer programs, right? We're all overcoming those right now. And I feel like there's a big thing to be said for that, because these guys are out there pushing 1%. Well, if I have a seller that comes to me and says that, oh, they said they list it for 1%, they didn't say that. You read that.
Mhm.
And that's a big thing to keep in mind. You already know right off the cuff, they haven't read an agreement with this person. They haven't met with this person. They haven't done this. Because that 1% is just their side of the fee. It's not the buyer's agent side of the fee and this kind of stuff. So when you're seeing that, it's good and useful to explain that part of the process too. You're comparing me with something that's not comparable, because that is one part of it.
Mhm.
My part of the 6% is only half of that. And
Mhm.
it's even less when you include what it is that we pay out in fees and all the other things. And, the commission splits and yada, yada. But you have to keep in mind that most of our job is educating people on it. They're seeing, oh, I can get it done for 1%. Well, I can go get liposuction done in Mexico, but I don't think it's the best thing. And it's okay to reiterate that yours is better because you're, again, like you said, it's quality over that. You can fist both for free too. You want to let strangers in your house and have them have background checks? You want to, let people in here without supervision? Do you want to just rely on a guy driving by that sees your little black and orange sign to sell your house? No. So I focus more on building values than I do anything else like that. Not to negate limited listing services. Honestly, they have a time and place, right? I mean, sometimes they do. But it's more
Just
than likely
what?
not the time and place for the people that that are calling you to.
Mhm.
So don't let them compare apples to pineapples in this situation, and remind them that there is a difference. And there are good reasons for that too. We don't do that.
Yes, thank you for pointing out those limited listing services, Diana, and that's another thing, the value we have is being able to explain this to people. Like they just see that advertisement in what do I get? The Valentine Quarterly or whatever. Like there's the limited listing services in there and it just advertises 1%, but that's not really accurate at all. If they actually looked into it, they would find out that's not how it works. Jimmy wanted to share something. Jimmy, do you want to unmute yourself and share?
Sure. One of the things that I've been doing lately, last year or so that's worked really well is I give people a couple of options. I'll bring it up. And I'll say, look, I do a 5, 6, and 7% listing option. The 6% is, just a traditional listing. 5%, you're actually, you pay a retainer fee and it's based on the listing price point. It's usually like 0.5% of the list price. They pay that in a retainer fee up front, and then they pay 5% in commission at closing. I do that though. I get them. I don't mind doing that because I'll do it at 2.5 and 2.5, but I'm getting almost 0.5% up front. I can use that for marketing. I can use that for whatever else. And essentially I'm being prepaid, for that listing. Or they can just do the regular 6%. And in that case, I'm still generally listing at 2.5%. So I'm getting 3.5%. Even at 5.5%, I'm still getting 3%. So I stopped talking about like, oh, I get 3%, I can do it for 2.5. I just talk about the total amount. I don't break it down into who's getting what. And it seems that it's always a lot easier conversation that way. And I'm confident about it, and I present it, and it's like, this is what I offer. Which option do you want to use? I'm good with any of them.
Yeah, so you present actual, like, at the sales price, you're discussing the actual numbers, the cost of the commission, rather than a percentage.
Yeah. So I had someone recently that it was Lucas. Sorry, I had one recently. They chose the 5% option, and they paid like $3,000 up front because I showed them the math, and in the grand scheme of things, after closing, they were going to save about $3,000. And I got to mute because my son's crying in the background.
Okay. No, thanks for sharing that. That's another strategy that some people are doing with commissions. If people are objecting to your commission, you can offer them, varying levels of service or varying levels of how to pay the commission. So that's a great idea. Thank you, Jimmy. If anybody wants to hear more about that, I'm sure they can talk to Jimmy. He's happy to share.
Yeah, happy to share.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Sorry, you guys. We're going the wrong way. Oh man. Is it my
You'd
chat?
be surprised how many people cannot even say, I've had a terrible experience. I paid 6% to someone, my house sat on the market for 200 days. They never answered their phone. They never wanted to communicate with us and do anything, so on and so forth. So like Allison said, by reiterating, why is this a concern for you? Like explain further. A lot of times it's just they're looking for validation and how they feel, and they're looking to know you're going to be different. Because it's like, why go? We don't want to go buy a blouse from. We don't want to go buy Jimmy Choo shoes for $1,200 and then find them on the rack at Walmart and stuff like this. So people are doing the same thing. So just focus on building your value every opportunity you can. And if you find out it's because someone else suffered, it's okay to be like, you know what, I really hate that agent gave us a bad name. You know what, that happens sometimes. But that's not how I run my business. And this is how I'm different. And get them shaking their head at you. When you start nodding at people and they start nodding back to you, you're catching them in that moment where they're becoming agreeable. And you're going to find a whole lot less objections when you do this. It's a simple thing.
Listening. Another point that you can bring up with the seller that's, telling you that another agent offered a lower commission rate, you can say to that person, well, did you have to convince them to do that? Did you ask them to lower the commission? And they say, well, no, they just offered to do it for 4%. Well, if they're just offering to do this for 4% and they're giving up their income, I mean, how strong of an agent do you think they're going to be at negotiating for you to keep your money when you are selling your house? So that's kind of something you can bring up when that is the objection that they're giving you. Okay, those buttons don't work anymore. Okay, some more seller objections. I want to list my home for a higher price than what you're suggesting they should list it for. And, just again, acknowledge that is a very good question, a good concern, and you understand why they would want the highest price for their home and that we would want that as well. But share with them, they shared with you that they wanted the house sold soon. Their goal is to sell the house. So, you know, if they want to sell the house in a decent amount of time, it's in their best interest to take your recommendation on the price. And it's a tough decision to make, and they'll know once they make the decision, they'll be done with it. The house will go on the market and the house will likely sell in a good amount of time. And then they'll be assured that they made the right choice. They don't want to look back and think they made the wrong choice by listing the house too high, and then they sit their days on market, which leads me into the next objection that they usually say, well, why can't we just list it at my price? And then, you know, if it doesn't sell, we'll reduce it to what you said we should list it for. And of course, yes, that's a good question. You could do that. However, if we do list the house high and it sits on the market for, even in the market we're in, if the house were to sit for 2 weeks, you know, and then we do a price reduction, that's increasing our days on market and that's decreasing the interest in the house. And you're going to end up netting a lower amount when it's all said and done. So that's a common thing that I hear in listing appointments. Diana, the same thing. They want to list it higher. Why can't we just do that and then just reduce it, right?
And I think the big thing here is knowledge against power. So if you go into your listing appointment and you have a market analysis and you were able to say, this house was on the market for this number of days, and you'll get the ratio of what price it listed for compared to what it sold for. Like, I'll prove to you that doesn't. Let me show it to you in black and white. And sometimes people need the logical side of their brains to work like that, because they might not work in an industry where we look for the highest bid, right? We'd rather get as much interest as possible and then get the higher bid. Let that emotional value build up. And again, be knowledgeable and explain to them, if we price it above what it appraises for, you might have to renegotiate and go back down anyway. If we price it at what it will appraise for or lower, those people going into that transaction are gonna know they're gonna come out of pocket with that appraised difference. That's emotional value money. That's not market value. So if you explain things to them, then it's like, oh, okay, well, the house down the street must have had some emotional value for someone. Let's see if we do the same thing here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, this one I love. So you're at the listing appointment. How many homes have you sold in this area? I've never seen your sign in any of the yards. And that's one that can kind of like get you a little nervous, you know, because you feel like, well, okay, they've been doing some research and they're obviously, you know, talking to maybe multiple agents and want to find an agent that they think's an expert in their area. And one way that you can, you know, reply to this objection is to agree with them and say, you know what, you're right. I actually haven't listed any homes in this area, but that's why I'm so excited to have this opportunity, because I'm excited to branch out into this area. I've been wanting to have a listing here for a long time. And because I'm getting this opportunity, I want to work extra hard to show you and your neighbors the level of service that I want to provide so that I can become, you know, the preferred listing agent in this area. So, you know, it's okay to be truthful about that. You know, you just have to explain to them, because of that, you're going to be really on top of your game because you want to earn their business. And I think that people really do appreciate you being honest about that, right?
I'm sorry.
And you could just also remind them that like our company has sold many homes in this area. I'm sure you've seen our company, and I've also worked with buyers in this area, but you know, it doesn't so much matter about the signs in the yard. It matters who has the buyers to buy these homes. And I have, you know, sold homes in this area, and that's not really something they can like, you know, reference check. So just, you can kind of fib on that a little bit if you need to, but I just think it's important to share that you're excited for the opportunity to work hard for them and get their home sold.
And again, knowledge is power. If you come at me and you're like, yeah, but you're not the agent whose signs I see in the area, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, you know what, but I want to be. Because, oh my gosh, this is like a quarter mile from the light rail. And these restaurants here up here I love so much. And blah, 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 blah. And now all of a sudden you are an expert on the area just because you've been sold in the area. I don't care if you've been to the restaurant or not, guys. Know the things, know the drinks on the menu. I wrote an entire thing on the light rail and I've never been on the daggum thing. I told you every stop along the way and something I liked on it though, because I did the research. And now all of a sudden I am an expert. I'm gonna go try all the things I haven't, right? But become the expert in one way or another. You can't be an expert in selling a house in the neighborhood if you don't know the neighborhood. And they're gonna be so excited that you're excited, because you never know, that neighborhood agent could be jaded to it. The neighborhood agent could live in the neighborhood and have their own predisposed notions about who should live there and what it should be like and all the other stuff. You don't hire the guy on the HOA to sell your house. You just don't. So bring the alternative perspective to, yeah, I'm excited to do it because I'm not involved in it. And it's giving you an excuse to come out here and do all these things all the time.
Mhm.
And hang out here on a Saturday for your open house and get to know this area. Maybe you want to live in the area, maybe something else. Bring that excitement. Where you can't bring experience, bring excitement and bring the knowledge that you can for what you have control over.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's hard to be objectionable to somebody who's super excited
Mhm.
and is ready to jump in and work for you.
For sure. Okay, so now I just want to talk about a few of the objections we hear from buyers, and these, I guess, don't seem as objectionable as the ones you are presented with at a listing appointment that you're trying to snag. These are people you're probably have been working with for some time. You've shown them some houses, you've had a buyer consultation with them. And again, if you want to learn more about scripts, doing buyer consultations, again, so much good information in our 1U system. You can literally just type in buyer consultation scripts and you're gonna get like a whole bunch of good ideas. But obviously couldn't hit them all today. One that we see a lot is, you've had your buyer consultation, you've understood all the needs and wants of this, whether it be couple, family, whomever it is, and you've shown them in your mind what would be a great house for them to buy. You've looked at the house, you've looked at the condition, you've talked about where it is and how much it costs, and it's checking all the boxes, but they still need to think about it. We just need to think about it. We need to sleep on it for a few days. You need to sleep on it. And then what you want to do is like dig in and find out what is holding them back from this house. And again, go back to this discussion we already had. What do you actually need to consider further? Because, this is the neighborhood that you said you wanted to be in. This is the price of home that you said you wanted to stay with. The payment looks good. I just want to make sure I'm doing my job to understand if there's questions that you still need answered, because I want to find the answers for you. So kind of present it to them that way. What is missing that is going to help you make this decision? And I'm going to find out the answer for you.
Sorry.
Well, we really like this house, but I've got to show it to my parents. And this, I spelled front wrong. Upfronty. This is one of those things, again, in your buyer consultation, when you first meet with these people, you want to understand who's going to be involved in this decision-making process. Is it the husband and the wife? Are the kids involved in the decision-making process? Are you receiving funds from a parent that's going to need to be involved in this decision-making process? You want to set the expectation up front that everybody that needs to be involved in the process should be there for the whole ride. They shouldn't be coming in at the end to put their stamp of approval on it. You need to know up front that they are an important part of the process. And that's going to help you do your job better as well. But sometimes people always bring up the parents when they're close to making a decision. They're like, well, I really want my dad to see it. My dad's going to look at the HVAC and the roof and all this stuff and whatever. And you can, of course say, well, a great opportunity for them to look at all that would be at our inspection that we're going to have once we're under contract. No, but they have to see it before we go under contract. It's really important. But I think what you could say here is like, okay, well, I can understand that. Let's think about it. They haven't been here for all the research you've been doing about the type of house that you want, the market you want to be in. They haven't been a party to all the discussions that we've had in each of the 12 homes we've seen, why this home was eliminated, why this one was in a contender. They haven't been a party to all of these long conversations that we've had. Is it really fair to bring them in now at this point, after we've had hours of discussions about this, to now put that on them to help them make that decision for you? Is that really a fair thing to do? So, kind of put it back on them that way. It's kind of putting your parents in a position that they don't have all the information to help you make that decision. So, you like the parents, Diana?
Love parents. My
Yeah,
response is a little different though. I'm always like FaceTime them now, let's go.
well,
We're
again,
not
in this
gonna
day and
schedule an
age,
appointment.
get them over here then, like, right,
Yeah,
right
like,
now,
you say, well, now's the time.
yeah.
We do not have time to schedule another appointment. They are
Mhm.
having an open house this weekend. They are doing X, Y, and Z. I appreciate you wanna have your parents involved. That's cool. Like, I'm with you. Put them on FaceTime right now, because we will not have time to do this again.
Mhm.
And when they're like, oh, well, we can't do that, then it leads into what you were saying about, well, if mom and dad are gonna be a part of this, the next, we're gonna lose this house.
Mhm.
Understand, if we don't offer on this house today or tomorrow, we're not gonna be able to get this house. But this just tells me, from now on, we need to make sure that we're touring homes when mom and dad are available.
Mhm.
So I go about it a very different way, but we always get to the end. It's going back to the whole, well, are they as big of a factor
Mhm.
as we thought they are? Or is this just an excuse?
Mhm. I know.
Because a lot of times it is an excuse, and it will come out and they'll be like, well, dad said we didn't really have to, but I really just want his opinion. I'm just really nervous about this. It's a big investment. I'm worried that I'm not gonna get that promotion or raise or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Now all of a sudden we've actually uncovered something else.
Mhm.
That problem we can fix.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's, you can kind of weed out whether or not that's actually the objection, or if there's another one underlying. Maybe it's dad's, I don't wanna take dad's money if I can't, or,
Mhm.
something along those lines. Well, let's talk about home warranties. Let's talk about what we can do, just in case mom and dad don't like the house, or don't
Mhm.
have the extra funds, or whatever. There's always something more to it than just what it
Yeah.
is that they tell us.
Yeah.
So put them on Facebook,
Yeah.
get it done. Your spouse needs to see it, good, here we go, I will walk out the room, I will measure it for you, write the offer, let's go. We don't have time.
Yeah, not in this market. Another buyer objection, like, oh, well, this house is great, but I need to see more houses. Like, we've only looked at 5 houses. I can't buy the 5th house I've seen, or the 2nd house I've seen, or the 1st house I've seen. And, you can again make them feel good about that concern, right? I would probably feel the same way you're feeling. Wow, we found a house so quickly. But before you waste, too much time thinking about this house, because like Diana said, it may be gone tomorrow. We've only seen these houses together, but I know from our conversations that you guys have looked at a lot of houses online. You've been looking at them for months, and you told me that there weren't even that many houses that you liked or met your criteria or were in your price range. So, here we found one that meets the criteria. It's in the price range. It's available. It's everything you said you wanted. So why look at any other houses, and I think kind of make them understand that you're also just really good at what you do. Like you listen to them, you listen to what they wanted and where they wanted to be, and you only showed them houses that met all the criteria and eliminated the ones that you knew that weren't going to work. So that's kind of a way to handle that situation. And that happens a lot. I mean, I'll show people 3 houses and they'll be like, I can't believe we found a house the first day we were looking at houses. I mean, that's also a little bit of the market that we're in with the inventory being low. There's just not much to look at. So you find the one more quickly, I think. But a lot of these things are also going to fluctuate based on market and, whether we have a lot of inventory or not. But that's one way to deal with that objection, which again, not so much an objection, just you're leading them to understanding that you know what you're doing and they know what they want, and let's move forward so we don't end up heartbroken that we've lost this home.
Keep in mind, times have changed. We're not sitting here flipping through an MLS notebook and doing this and having to go out and see everything, because now we have 3D imaging, we have great photography, we have all the tools available. You didn't find a house the first day.
No.
Today, we listed how many houses came on the market today in MLS. I honestly didn't know how was it working. But you're saying just today alone, we had 90 houses hit the market. We saw 3, we eliminated 87 houses before we even stepped out the door together. So especially when you're talking to people who are an older generation, remember the times beforehand, it's not the same. We've done the work for you before you even walked through the door. So yeah, years ago you had to look at 40 houses because you didn't have a choice. Nowadays we do have a choice, so it is a little bit different. So promoting again that this research was already done. It might seem simple now because it's automated for you, but we've really already done this based off of that search criteria and stuff like this. it's so huge when you help stop and put it in perspective for people, especially when they're listening to outside sources about their experiences. It's like, I'm so sorry I was good at my job and found a great house today. Did you want me to take up more of your time? You want to stress about this longer? Didn't think so. And they laugh and then they're ready to go for it.
Yeah, and you're constantly always reminding them of your value as a real estate professional and why they're there with you. So we got it done. We didn't have to waste a lot of time. So we just want to touch a little bit on a part of the process that does tend to bring some of the worst parts out in people, which is the repair negotiations process. You know, and what I'll say about that is typically, especially when you're working with maybe younger buyers, you know, after the inspection, they're generally going to say that they want all of the repairs
All the
done.
things.
Here's the list. It's everything on the list. And what do sellers want who have been through this process likely before because they bought the house? They're like, well, we're not going to fix anything, you know? So you're dealing with two opposite ends of the spectrum there. What are some of the objections that you are getting a lot from your buyers on repairs?
So I feel like we're still in this market where people are paying top market value or over market value for homes. So one of the big ones that I tend to hear is, if I am paying this amount of money, and I am, especially if we're going over appraised value in some situations, now I don't have the money to deal with a 20-year-old HVAC system. And the seller's gonna say, well, it ain't broke, I'm not fixing it.
Mhm.
And then you're kind of at a standstill, because the seller's not gonna go drop the money to do this. They're excited they just got over asking price for their house, probably because their listing agent did the same thing we said and said, price it marketably and watch it rise. So now all of a sudden, this is your standstill that you're at, is a buyer that won't necessarily have the funds if the HC goes out next June. And a seller who's like, yeah, no, I'm good. It's not broken. I don't feel like I should have to. And that's an issue that we kind of, we are seeing more and more of these major systems, because sellers feel like they can get away with not having to do it. And honestly, if they were still living in their home, they wouldn't have to do it. Right? So in their mentality, we can understand that. But a buyer is scared, especially first-time buyers or those that have had experiences before. Hey, I'm gonna get in there and 3 months from now, I'm gonna lose the hot water heater, the garage door is gonna break, the HVAC, they couldn't even test because it's winter time, so God knows if it's actually gonna turn on next June. Like, now all of a sudden we're scared. And what do you do when that happens?
And a lot of ways to kind of circumvent some of that is before you even make an offer on the property, doing your research as your buyer's agent. I mean, I literally, when I show houses, I don't climb under the house, but I do look, I mean, like, look under the house, look at the water heater, look at the HVAC system. Sometimes you can read the label and see how old it is. Sometimes you can just look at it and tell it hasn't been maintained. There's the cord is, I mean, it's just, you can tell, like, nobody's taking care of this. So have these conversations before you even make the offer. Help the buyer understand, like, you may be purchasing this house with these systems as is. So when we put this number on the line, I want you to understand that there's a chance that none of this is going to be accommodated for. Like, you're going to have to deal with it on the other end. So have those conversations like earlier in the process rather than after the inspection.
I think that's really important, due diligence being so.
Exactly.
With so much information, as much
As you can.
starting before you even offer.
As a buyer's agent, you always need to approach it with, we can always ask, but they can always say no. That's it. You're buying the house as is. You were under contract, period, as is. I will ask and I will fight for you and I'll negotiate for you. But always understand that they can say no. And what are you gonna do if that happens? And be comfortable going into it with that and not.
Yeah, and
How much is due diligence approximately, like if the house is 500,000, how much due diligence do you have to put down?
I mean, that's a fully negotiable number.
there's not really any right answer to that question.
I mean, I've literally seen people use their entire down payment in due diligence to get the deal.
Right, like after some people put
That's scary.
$50,000 down, and you're like, gosh, that's scary.
Yeah, you're just buying the house as is. You have no negotiating power when you have that much money on the line. Now, I will say with, when you do have inspections and things do come up that are really something there was no way you would have had any knowledge about. Maybe it's an electrical issue or, you know, some sort of plumbing issue that you would not have been able to discover simply looking at the house or touring the house. Those are the kinds of repairs that you tend to have more negotiating power on. But I mean, I see a lot of sellers, especially if they're very forthcoming with the age of things, not doing any kinds of repairs or concessions for old equipment because you kind of
Most
should have known
people
that
do fill
going
out
into
the
it.
seller, the disclosure as, fill it out, or they just say no representation.
It varies.
Yeah,
Honestly, it does. I mean, I've been the listing agent who was the a-hole that said, look, dude, you decided to go $50,000 over. You signed the disclosure stating you knew the age of the HVAC, stating you knew X, Y, and Z. Right. You don't have right to ask me for this.
mhm,
Right. Like, we don't have to because you knew the things.
mhm.
Right,
So
we were
don't come
real
at me to
upfront with
win
it.
don't come at me to win a bid and then try to undercut me again. That's not how this works. I'm not representing my client that way. This is what you did. So don't be the agent that is neglectful enough to not look at the archives.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go back. If there's not something on this one, you best be darn tootin' I'm going back to the last three I can
History.
find.
And you can find them.
You can.
Mhm.
Just because it's listed with an iBuyer right now, you've got an open door, an offer pad or something like that, where they're listing no
Nothing.
representation. I'm looking at when that buyer bought it. And I'm seeing what's on there. I'm checking the neighborhood to see, hey, look.
Is it
they-
polybutylene pipes?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
people
Right.
check that on the other ones in the neighborhood. Yeah, I
think that
mean,
makes a lot of sense.
You
But
can-
big
You have
due
to
diligence,
do-
You gotta go in with all the
Yeah,
information
if
as
you're
much
gonna
as
do
you
that,
can.
you get as much as you can and make sure your client is aware that, hey, just because they haven't disclosed it, doesn't mean we don't have something. Because obviously, we looked at it, it's not a new HVAC system, it hasn't been replaced in 3 years, it's kind of obvious. So this is at the 2001. So it probably is,
mhm,
right? So you can do that too to help your people overcome that, but they have to have reasonable expectations too on both sides. And it's all about educating people so that you can avoid a lot of this too.
mhm.
And then at the end of the day, guys, throw in a daggone home warranty.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, just do a warranty, even if it can't hurt.
Yeah, it's.
How much are they nowadays?
700.
5, 6, 700, depends on the company and the coverage and.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to say, hey, look, seller. There's a bunch of little stuff on here, my buyers are willing to do themselves. They are concerned about the HVAC or whatever little thing that might have popped up.
Mhm.
Will you help give them peace of mind? And drop a $700 home warranty, just to take that off their plate and make everybody happy. And a lot of times your sellers are gonna be like, that I can do, that's reasonable. I wouldn't
Mhm.
wanna move into a place and be worried that the water heater is gonna go out tomorrow, just because I know it's working, I get it. And if you put it in perspective for them when they're buying a new home too, saying, how would you feel if this happened to you? Right, like, let's fight for that on your next house too, so we can get that coverage for you. And then they're like, oh, that's more fair, because I'm gonna ask for it too.
Mhm,
So I get that, and you can always kind of play with that too.
mhm.
And keep in mind, guys, your loans dictate some of this, right? I mean, if you have an FHA or VA loan that has stuff that comes up, from that inspection, it's gonna hit appraisal issues. If you've got an FHA or VA addendum, guess what? You have rights to go back and fight for stuff you might not have been able to. So also keep that in mind, both on the buyer and seller side, that your loans are gonna dictate some of that. I mean, I have one that came back this past week that literally licking light socket cover was off. Light socket cover. It's an hour and 45 minutes away.
You had to
Somebody
go,
had to drive an hour and 45 minutes to go put that on,
Uh-huh.
and then they had to reappraise the sucker. For a little bit of touch up paint and that. Yes,
and that was another fee,
yes.
the reappraisal fee
Yes.
and the time. Did you go put the light cover on there?
That particular situation, no. But I mean, sometimes there are little things that show up, so on both sides of this, be aware of that. And be aware that you have negotiating power when you have those addendums.
Mhm.
So you can also kind of fall back on that too, and prioritize your repairs. Your buyers oftentimes are gonna be the ones that are like, oh, I need the roof things fixed. Hold on a second. The first priority is what's gonna take for your loan to go through, what's going to affect your loan. And then the next one is safety and concerns that the loan might have picked up.
Mhm.
And then your major systems, obviously, and what can we do with those, and then the pretty little things.
Deferred maintenance is usually last on the list of repairs, but yeah, that was gonna be my exact list as well. And I did not make I should have made a slide for this, but I wanted to let everybody know that a lot of these scripts and a lot of the things I discussed today are, from our coaching partner, Sherry DeGroat, who you'll find on 1U. She has like a whole coaching series, every aspect of real estate, lead generation, tons of things about scripts. And I don't know if you ever listened to her before, but you know, when we go back to the being the calm, the cool, collect, I just like listening to her because she's very like soothing. And I'm sure that's why she's been so successful in real estate. Just listening to her makes you feel calm and like empowered, and you're making the right choice. So I highly suggest listening to SHERRIDEGR. Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong. GROOT? OTE. But yeah, if you go in our 1U, everybody knows about One University, right? If you just type in Sherry DeGroat, it'll come up with thousands of things. We've got documents, we've got audio files, we've got videos. Yeah, so I just want to give shout out to her because a lot of this scripting stuff came from her. And that's everything I have for you guys today. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, there's some more stuff in the chat here. Jimmy.
All Jimmy, isn't it? Yeah, Jimmy.
It's all me. I'm sitting here on mute, so I'm just chiming in, agreeing with
Yeah.
everything you say.
You're agreeing. Okay. Yeah, warranty. Jimmy's agreeing with the warranty. Yeah, factor it in with the offer, even if it includes the warranty. Oh, Jimmy, you want to tell us about that buyer?
Oh yeah, the example I gave, I had a listing, and it was in a part of Charlotte. It was over near like Stonecrest area and in Touchstone, and there had been some hailstorms, there had been some roof replacements and stuff, and the buyer's agent was coming in like, yeah, there's probably gonna be some roof damage on here. We're probably gonna ask for a roof. And they did their inspections. That was one of the things that they asked for. So we had a roofing professional that went out there and was able to show there's hail damage. And then he was able to make the claim. He was able to work with the adjuster to get a claim submitted. So my clients only ended up having to pay about $1,000, and they got over asking. They paid about $1,000 to replace a, I don't know, $20,000 roof. So it ended up, that's probably why everybody's insurance is going up now. But
Yeah, that is.
but yeah, but they were able to get that done. You know, they were able to get that repair done for them. So, but I'm working with sellers or buyers. I tell buyers, I'm like, ask for the big things. Like, don't worry about like all the ticky-tack small stuff. And then sometimes you'll have people who just want to ask for ticky-tack small stuff. And you're like, okay, well, at least we didn't have to do any expensive repairs. Like I've got a listing that closes tomorrow. Everything on their list pretty much was just there's a handyman punch list. They knocked it out for like $500-600 in a day. Got it all done. My seller's like, okay, I'm cool with that. So
yeah, that stuff you can get done relatively inexpensively, and if it makes them happy, then it makes them happy.
Yeah, I used to really stress about due diligence and the repair negotiations, and I just don't anymore. It's like, this is what it is, and you present both ways, and then you come up to an agreement. But I used to get, when I was a younger agent, I used to really stress about it and think I had to scratch and claw for every little item that my client wanted. But the objective is, I think both parties need to be reasonable. Both parties want the transaction to happen. The buyers want to buy the house. They want to buy a safe and a nice house to move into. The sellers usually want to be reasonable as well. They want to sell their house. They don't want to go back on the market. So a lot of it is communicating with the other agent and not getting emotional about it, and just being, having a good working relationship with the other agent is very important to being able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Yep. Goes back to communication.
Communication.
Yep.
They working together for the same goal.
Mhm.
With your client's permission, you guys, it's okay to explain their why. If you have a buyer that's asking for something that for some reason seems to be right, or, we have one of our agents recently had one where it's like, we want the bathtub refinished. Now, it wasn't, it had chips in it. This was not a huge It wasn't affecting structure, it wasn't doing anything
More
else.
cosmetic kind
Yeah,
of
and
thing.
most people would have been like, well, that's a pretty little thing, that's not anything else. But the fact of the matter was, is this buyer was an elderly woman. And that is the one joy she had in life. And she did not want to move into this house and have to have it refinished and deal with the fumes and all the other things, because she just couldn't. She couldn't be out of the house long enough to do it. So they were able to go, our agent went to them and said, hey, look, I know this seems really silly potentially for you, but this is her joy. And she is willing to hire somebody to do all the other things. But this, we just want done before she moves in, so that on moving day, she can have the one thing that she's looking forward to in this house the most. And the sellers are like, you know what, we get it.
Mhm.
And it was done, not a big deal. But for anybody else, they might have been like, seriously? Like, it's a little chip in the bathtub. For her, it was every reason why she wanted that house. So it's okay to explain those things, because people get it. They have their things too.
Yeah, most people are good
Yeah.
and
no.
decent.
Well,
And going back to the
It's
whole
all
a-hole thing,
communication.
yeah, and it's, yeah, like Diana said, it's okay to share people's motivations of why they want this small seeming thing. But it's, when we meet some of our clients for the first time, they may seem like a-holes, but most people really aren't. And it's just about having good communication. And that's what it's all about in our business. So I don't think there's any other questions. Did anybody here have any questions? Quiet. Well, thanks for coming.
I'll say,
Everybody. Oh, Jimmy's got one more thing to say.
you guys want to share something that I heard a long time ago,
Here.
early on in my career, from a top producing agent. He said, he had the phrase that he lived by. He said, no bad business, meaning, and no is spelled N-O, and it's also spelled K-N-O-W. So sometimes with people, I mean, you're not made for every single person. So you have to know that, you have to recognize it. And when it's not the right fit, you have to be able to say no to it. Most of the time, most of the people you're going to meet up with, you're going to be fine to work with. But every now and then, there's going to be someone who's going to, sap more of your energy, is going to run you around, and isn't going to end up completing the transaction. And sometimes when if you can recognize this and then trust your gut when you've had that experience a couple times, be able to say, you know what, I'd be better off referring you to another agent. I've got another agent in my firm who you'd be great working with. I think you'd just be a better fit. So you can avoid a lot of that, because people have different communication styles, and we can probably all communicate pretty well with most people, but some people just don't mesh. So sometimes you have to be able to recognize that and be able to walk away, or if you can preempt it, get a referral out of it. You're still helping them out, just not directly.
Yep. And to know that that's okay to do.
Yep.
So I'll not be as stressed. Okay, well, thanks for all your contributions today, Jimmy. I hope everybody took a little something away today, but I really encourage you. In my real estate career, I have gotten more, accepting of the whole scripting thing and just knowing what to say when people are going to have these objections. I think earlier in my career, I was like, I don't need that. I'm just going to talk to people. But it really is nice to have like a canned response that is effective for these kinds of objections that you're going to meet. So I encourage everybody to check those out and make yourself a little book, or copy them, or record them, or talk to another agent, do role playing, and ask other agents how they answer these questions. And you may find a better answer than you see in your online research. Just talk to your fellow agents, especially ones that have been in the business a while. All right, I'm going to shut down the Zoom. Thanks everybody for coming.
Bye, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Maisha, Brittany. Bye, Brittany. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. I'm sorry, I thought it was just Jimmy.
No.
Well, thank you for doing this. I really liked it. So we went into the Call McGraw thing yesterday, and just how to fight if you ever get attacked. It's good to have just a couple of things, you can throw an elbow or kick, just to have something in your mind.
It's thrown up as a great.
To know what to do in this extreme situation. But sometimes when someone comes up with an objection, your mind goes, oh my gosh. It just gives you something to say. Oh, well,